Peace, everyone. How you doing? Welcome to the podcast. And today's title is Geopolitical Topic: the Bible or the Biblical King of the South, End Time Prophecy Exposed. So we're gonna have our brother Dr. Skills with us today. He's gonna deal with some eschatology, end time prophecy. It's gonna deal with a lot of what can be stated as predicate, full preterist topics and things to that. It's in time prophecy. The full preterists believe that end time prophecy was fulfilled in 70 AD. That's just to give y'all a little heads up on what's going on. But I'm finna call Skills right now. Let's see if we get this thing started. Yes, we're finna deal with some things that most people never deal with.
Good morning, bro. Peace.
Peace. The show is started. I done read the title, Geopolitical Topic, Biblical King of the South, End Time Prophecy Exposed. So, if y'all can hear the teacher, let me know. And when you get ready, you can start dealing with the subject.
All right. First, what I want to do is, because I am in the chat as well, I want to share a link in the chat. And that link is for the listeners to go back. We did a show about 1 year ago, and I just want to read the title, How Panama, Canada, and Greenland Fit in Donald Trump, if Donald Trump expands the USA. And the reason why I want everybody to go watch that video is it set a premise for what we're going to deal with today. And there's a lot of things that what we spoke about was actually prophetic, because just to give a little backdrop, at that time, Donald Trump had just won the presidency, and we were talking about why he wanted to take back the Panama Canal to have control over Canada and Greenland. And when we had that discussion, certain things hadn't happened yet that actually happened. And one of the big things that happened is that Trump went at it with NATO. And as of December of 2025, Germany has now begun to build a military war machine. All of the international news articles in December of last year began to read that because of Donald Trump's move to not really help out with the Ukraine and to not fund NATO in the near future, Germany and the European nations are now breaking away from NATO and forming an alliance to build a German war machine. And if you go watch that show, which was done round about this time last year, we spoke in depth about that, and that had not yet begun to really fester and come to fruition. So it is important that the listeners of this show go back and watch the How Panama, Canada, and Greenland Fit if Donald Trump expands the USA show, and I shared the link in the side chat. So now what we spoke about in that show was mainly the same prophecy in the book of Daniel, but as it related to the King of the North, and the King of the North plainly being the Roman Empire, i.e. the European Union or the European Common Market, with Germany being the dominating nation in that, and how that is forming. This episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the King of the South and end time prophecy. And just to give everybody the premise here, we're going to be dealing mainly with the book of Daniel, chapter 11, certain excerpts from that, as well as the book of Psalms 83. And the reason why we're going to be discussing Psalms 83 is because Psalms 83 speaks of an alliance that is going to form amongst nations in these end times, leading into the return of Jesus Christ. And it deals with what me and Brother Carl here agree that we are, which is partial preterists. And for the new listeners, preterism deals with end-time Bible prophecy, and many people who are what they call full preterists believe that all things in the Bible was fulfilled back in the year 80-70, whereas me and Brother Carl are partial preterists. We believe that a lot of the prophecy in the book of Daniel, as an example, was fulfilled in 80-70, but that a lot of those prophecies went out past 80-70 into the times before we lived, all the way up to the current, and then even into the very near future. So I just wanted to give that backdrop before I started firing away on the biblical king of the South, so that people are up to speed. You really need to go watch that video we did prior. So now I'm gonna get into this now, because what has also transpired is something that we didn't speak about and that a lot of people didn't see coming, which is that Donald Trump made a move to go against the nation of Iran. And right now, the U.S. got warships circling various different straits, going around the Red Sea, the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has been attacked. A lot of its missile capabilities have been, if not totally destroyed, minimized. And nobody saw that coming in the general sense. Nobody thought that Donald Trump would attack Iran. Now, there's a lot of reason. Go ahead.
Do you need me here? Because I need to step away for a sec.
No, I could go for a little bit.
Okay,
just let me know when you come back.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, so basically what I'm going to be doing is reading a lot of excerpts, and I want to speak a little bit about the history of the church, because there is a history of Israel that predates even me or Brother Carl being born. So obviously, everybody knows about the little nation called Israel today. A lot of Bible scholars and people of the faith consider modern Israel in the Middle East as the biblical nation of Judah, not to be confused with the other Israelite nations that the Bible said would be scattered into various different nations. Now, if you look at it from a historical or biblical standpoint, anciently Israel was split into two kingdoms. Two of them represented the Judah tribe and Levi, and then you had the other 10 tribes of Israel that was split into two separate kingdoms. Now, in the biblical account, the Judah would be put in captivity and Israel, but there would be a slight difference between the two. Judah would maintain understanding its biblical identity, and the Israelites would be put in captivity, and a lot of them would not know who their biblical identity is, and they would also be scattered amongst many nations. So to understand the history of God's church, we
I don't know what happened to people, but we'll fix it. Oh, battery low. Let's fix this right quick. Dr. Skills, if you can hear me, it'll be just a sec. The battery went down on the phone. Type OK in the chat if you're still there and you can hear. You'll be back up in just a sec. You still there? Forgive us for the interruption, people. Satan always get busy when you're trying to get busy for the Lord God of Israel. Believe me, 30 years I know this.
Hello.
The power went out, my bad. It's plugged up now. You good. As I told Satan, get busy when you get busy for the Lord.
Yeah, man. I was wondering, I'm calling. I'm like, yeah, man, they don't want it to come out.
I still gotta be away for a second. You can have it.
What'd you say?
You can have it. I still gotta be away for a second.
I'm here. Yeah, so I see we still live.
That's why I said it.
Okay, so yeah, let me get back to it. Pardon to the audience, had a little technical difficulties, but I want to get right to it. So again, quick recap, check the link. We spoke about the king of the north. We're moving on the king of the south here. And I was trying to break down a little history of Israel doctrine or God's church by bringing up an individual named Herbert Armstrong that Brother Carl has kind of been researching and speaking more about recently. Herbert Armstrong was an individual who ran the Worldwide Church of God. And he was so influential in his time, he was labeled the unofficial ambassador of peace to the United Nations. And the reason why he was able to receive that unofficial title is as a leader of the Worldwide Church of God in Pasadena, California, with his Herbert Armstrong Armstrong College for Bible students. He sat with most of the leaders of the world, from Thailand, Asia, a lot of the Middle Eastern leaders. He had a ministry and outreach that had a television program, radio programs, free magazines and print articles, booklets, and he was pushing the Israel doctrine that the modern nations of Israel today are mainly America and Britain. when you look at the Israelite nations, that as I was speaking before we got cut, the modern nation of Israel in the Middle East is considered only Judah. And the Israelites were scattered amongst many other nations. Those nations, from Herbert Armstrong's teachings, include America, where we're at today, and Britain. And that tends to be accepted by a lot of people because of the fact that if you look at the geopolitical and military alliance between America, the United Kingdom, and Israel overseas, we can see that these three nations today are joined at the hip. So I just wanted to establish that premise as we start delving into this. Now, I want to give a quick overview of some things, but I'm gonna start like this. The king of the north and the king of the south is discussed in the book of Daniel, mainly in chapter 1140. The prophecy of Daniel was partially fulfilled. And like I said, over here we're partial preterists, not to be confused with full preterism. But this discussion is about the king of the south and the end time alliance that is currently developing in the Middle East, and one that is prophesied to develop also further after a brutal war between the king of the south and the king of the north, right? So the main verse we will be looking at to define these ancient kings and their modern developments of the northern and southern kingdom post 70 AD is in the book of Daniel 11:40 through Daniel 11:43. And then we'll be talking about a future alliance which is described in Psalms chapter 83. So this discussion we're having will involve many other verses of the King James Bible. Chapter 11 and the outcome of a Psalms 83 alliance. Now, I'm giving you guys a brief overview of Psalms 83. This is based off of the AI overview given by Google, which is reasonable, which says that Psalms 83 is a communal lament and prayer attributed to Asaph, pleading for God to intervene against a confederacy of nations, Edom, Ishmaelites, and Moab, plotting to destroy Israel. It calls for a divine judgment to defend his people, seeking that the enemies be confounded so they acknowledge Jehovah or God as supreme. So again, when we're dealing with Psalms 83, it's speaking of an alliance that's going to form between Edom, Ishmael, and Moab. And it is important for us to understand that, as I was speaking about the full preterists that believe that everything was fulfilled in 70 AD and there's no other prophecy of the King James Bible that is going to be carried out in our time. This is a way to deal with that premise and destroy that based on Bible commentary, scholarship, and of Psalms 83. An alliance that there's no historical backdrop to show these nations aligning against ancient Israel. So it is important that we understand that as we go into ancient prophecy that was fulfilled with AD 70, that we look at Bible prophecy from the Psalms 83 alliance and see that this is something that the Bible is telling us is going to be forming now. And again, it's important to look at what's going on in the Middle East today, because we're going to see who the king of the south is based on other Bible commentary and people who have been watching and following this before we were born and all the way up to the current. So key aspects of Psalms 83 is the threat. Enemies are conspiring to destroy Israel as a nation, acting in unison to make the name of Israel remembered no more. Now we're going to go real briefly to Daniel 11:40 and read this. And at the time of the end, this is a Daniel 11:40. Shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind with chariots and with horsemen and with many ships, and he shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over. So again, I gave you guys the link to go watch that show about Panama and Greenland, because we dealt heavily in that show with the King of the North being a European Union or the European Common Market with Germany, Italy, and various European nations combining under the Holy Roman Empire, which when you read the book of Daniel or the statue in the dream of Nebuchadnezzar, it breaks down the history of the 4 world ruling empires. And this is something that a lot of people who deal with the Bible can use to combat people who don't believe in the Bible in this very simple sense. A third of the Bible deals with history. So even if you don't get caught up in the religious aspects of Jesus Christ rising from the dead and all of the religion, what you'll find in the King James Version of the Bible is it gives a very accurate account of history as it relates to world ruling empires. Now, with the statue in the book of Daniel and what we dealt with in the previous show, we showed that the head of gold in the statue was the Babylonian Empire. That is a real history you can go look into, secular from the Bible. That Babylon controlled the earth at one point. Then it moved into the Medes and the Persians. And then it went into the Greeks and the Romans. So just from the third of the Bible that deals with history, you don't have to so much put a belief system behind that. You could just do research in the secular history and see that, yes, secular history supports what the Bible is telling us about these world ruling empires, with us currently being under the last empire, which is Rome. And this is another reason why over here we're partial preterists, because full preterists who preach and teach that everything was fulfilled in AD 70, they don't see that we're currently still under the Roman Empire, and that a lot of the prophecies in the Bible speak of the return of Jesus Christ and how he's going to destroy all of those kingdoms in the earth and bring everybody under one house, or what we call spiritual Israel today. So you got to be clear. The Bible deals with a third of history. Under that history and current events, we are currently still under the Roman Empire. Rome is still on the scene. It's actually, as I spoke earlier, forming its own military again, just like in World War I and World War II. The United States and Britain went to war with Germany. Germany's back on the scene again. And with Trump's splitting from NATO, it is causing Germany to form its own military. And I don't want to go too deep there. I want to stay on the King of the South. But I'm going to read it again. And at the time of the end, this is Daniel 11:40. Shall the King of the South push at him, and the King of the North shall come against him like a whirlwind. So here we have a southern king that's going to push against this northern king, and this northern king is going to whirlwind against this southern king. We have already broke down that the King of the North is the Roman Empire, led by Germany, with all of the European common market behind it. Now, who's the King of the South? Let me go to 41. He shall enter, because this is verse 41, into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab and the chief of the children of Ammon. So here we're seeing that this actual southern king, when it pushes against this northern king, or the Roman Empire is going to overthrow nations, and certain ones are going to escape from being overthrown. And that includes Edom, Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. Verse 42 says, he shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape, but he shall have over the treasures of gold and silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt, and the Libyans and the Ethiopians shall be at his steps. So here, what we're saying is, this is a future alliance of nations that are going to push against the Holy Roman Empire, and we're trying to figure out who is this southern king that's going to do this and have the northern king whirlwind, right? So we have to see some relevant history. This is dealing with some of the full preterists. The relevant history that is found in the scriptures leading up to the end of Daniel 11, which we just read 11:40 through 43, the context of that scripture is revealed in Daniel 10:1, which says that God gave Daniel this prophecy in the 3rd year of the reign of King Cyrus of the Persian Empire, which was somewhere around 555 BC. So Daniel 11:2-3 reads, "And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia after Cyrus, and the 4th shall be far richer than they all. And by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. And a mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will." Now, for the full preterists, some of this was fulfilled in AD 70. Secular history proves it because the 4 kings were Cambyses, Pseudo-Smyrdes, Darius, and Xerxes. It was the last, or Xerxes, who was the richest of all and stirred up war with Greece. So again, the Bible deals in history. You can go look up secular history and see that these kings that were prophesied in the time that Daniel lived, they did rise up and they did make war with Greece. Alexander the Great invaded Persia, which was basically Greece. He met the Persian army at the Battle of Issus in 333 BC. And this is broken down in the book of Daniel, chapter 8, verse 2, 5, and 6. Then he swept down into Egypt, and then to a final crushing defeat of the Persian Empire at the Battle of Arbela, 331 BC, after which Alexander marched on a conquest clear to India, sweeping all before them. So this is dealing with the history of the Greeks and the Persians back in the time of Daniel, and then secular history breaking it down. After Alexander died in the year 301 BC, 4 divisions, just as it was prophesied in that King James Bible or in the transliteration, as a result of the empire into his generals. So Alexander broke it into 4 parts. In Judea, Seleucus, Nicator, ruling Babylonia and territory east to India. Then you had Lysimachus ruling Asia Minor, and you had Cassander ruling Greece and Macedonia. Thus was the prophecy of Daniel 11 verse 4 fulfilled to the letter. So when you're reading Bible prophecy, the prophecy given to Daniel of the statue and the world ruling empires in that time, leading into 70 AD, it was fulfilled. Now notice what follows from here. The prophecy foretells the activities only of 2 of these 4 divisions. Egypt anciently was called the king of the south because it was south of Jerusalem, and the Syrian kingdom anciently the king of the north, just north of Judea. So when you're looking at this from a full preterist standpoint, as I was saying, anciently it was fulfilled in AD 70 with the southern and northern king. Well, we're looking into the future or into the current to see how these prophecies manifest today and who the king of the north is today and the king of the south. So I'm going a little further, and I want to make this clear. You guys can go. This what I'm reading from is an excerpt from a book called The King of the South, and it was written and published by an author named Gerald Flurry of the Philadelphia Church of God in the year 1996. This book has been revised numerous times all the way up until 2025. And this book is free of charge. You can just search The King of the South to understand that I am reading excerpts from literature to break down the history of the book of Daniel as it relates to AD 70 and how we're going to get to who the King of the South is today. So, okay, this is a critical piece of the puzzle. The Bible prophesies of 10 resurrections of this Roman Empire. the last 7 of which are guided by the Roman Catholic Church. And again, you got to click that link in the side chat and go watch the show we did about 1 year ago, because we break down the whole King of the North, as I said earlier, in detail of the modern Roman Empire and Catholicism. And I actually broke down the 6 resurrections of the Roman Empire up until today, with the 7th one forming now. So history supports everything that I'm saying in light of Bible prophecy, that Rome is an empire in the book of Revelations that's represented by mountains. And just like a mountain, if you reach the peak of the mountain, that would be the emperor of Rome. But when you reach the valley, Rome keeps going underground and coming back up. And I walked through the 6 times that Rome did this already historically, all the way up to Hitler in World War II. Hitler was the 6th emperor of Rome. Going back originally, just so I could stay in continuity with what I'm talking about, Justinian was the beginning of the Roman Empire for the 7 resurrections. It's really 10, but the first 3 were the barbarian Roman tribes when they split after AD 70. So after AD 70 and the ransacking of Jerusalem, the Holy Roman Empire went through different ups and downs, and different emperors throughout history kept raising up and going underground. And in the book of Revelations, just so in continuity, is this empire as like mountains, and it goes into peaks and valleys, up and down. So let me just give a brief history of the modern German Empire to make this line up. You guys can go online and do your research into Operation Paperclip. This has been declassified by the Central Intelligence Agency some years back, about the history of Germany in World War II, and how after World War II, many of the Nazi Germans and scientists that were a part of the Holocaust were given political asylum all throughout Central, South, and North America, and they went underground. And they're here to this very day, or the children of the Nazi Party or the Third Reich. They didn't go anywhere. This is proven in history through declassification of documentation under Operation Paperclip. And I'm telling you that Hitler was the 6th resurrection of the Holy Roman Empire, because when he annexed Austria, he took the Roman emperor's crown and put it on his head. And there's other emperors prior to him, starting with Justinian, and I'll give you another emperor of Rome, Charlemagne. Everybody's heard the term Charlemagne. In hip-hop, we got an individual that goes by Charlemagne the God. That is based off of the former Roman emperor Charlemagne. And most people who follow the Roman Empire, they love Charlemagne the most. Because Charlemagne, they believe, was the one that really united Rome like no other emperors in its history. Even greater than what Hitler was able to do in World War II, obviously more recent history. But again, so you had 10 prophesized resurrections of the Roman Empire, the last 7 of which are guided by the Roman Catholic Church. So who is the king that rules a collection of people south of Europe today, and that has the character to push and provoke a catastrophic war? This king will ally with Egypt, Libya, and Ethiopia. And we know from the Bible's account, it won't ally with Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. This means that the king of the south cannot be any of these countries. So when you're looking at the history of the Bible and prophecy, you could deduct the reasoning of the Middle Eastern nations that could fulfill the role of being south of modern Europe, but which nations were allied up with it to form this king that pushes against the king of the north, as I spoke of in Daniel 11:40 through 43. This king can only fit the description of what we see in modern Iran. Okay? So what we're witnessing right now with Trump going in to try to take out Iran is something that is prophesized in that King James version of the Bible as it relates to Daniel 11 and 40 and this coming world war that's leading to the return of Jesus Christ, not to be confused with what a full preterist believes, which is that all things were fulfilled in AD 70. We talking post AD 70, current, all the way into the very near future. So now let me give you a quick breakdown of what's going on in the Middle East, because I'm going to get into this a little more without being too long-winded. What's going on with Iran right now, we all know that, and it's kind of funny, that Iran and the overthrow of Iran and the actual installation of the Khomeini, which is now dead. We know that Donald Trump killed the Khomeini and killed a lot of their leadership more recently. But the whole revolution in Iran, people who listen to this platform, guess what date it happened? April the 1st, 1979. So over here at Israel Doctrine, there's a movement to find a boy that they say stabbed Africa Bambaataa in an apartment on April the 1st, 2013. What's the coincidence that the Iranian Revolution that led all the way up to the overthrowing of the Iran and the installation of radical Shiite Muslim caliphate happened on April the 1st, 1979. So everything is lining up here with what's going on in current events, what's going on in hip-hop, and what's going on in Bible prophecy. Because we now understand that Africa Bambaataa, who just passed away, was representative of Islam with the Moors or the Moabites, and that he, whether he knew it or not, was part of what is known as the Muslim Brotherhood. And the Muslim Brotherhood is something that former President Barack Obama established mainly during his presidency. If you guys know anything about the Arab Spring, the various overthrows of governments in the Middle East to align what I'm telling you about this biblical king of the South. So I had to just sidetrack that. Now we're going to get back to it. Using a three-pronged approach, Iran has spread its radical Islamic influence all over the Middle East. It has nearly taken over Iraq, and that's pivotal because if Iran unifies with Iraq, guess what we got, people? Ancient Persia. So when you're going in the book of Daniel and you're talking about those four world ruling empires, from the Babylonians to the Medes and the Persians to the Greeks and to the Romans, that's the four world ruling empires. When you look at Persia, Persia anciently was Iran and Iraq unified. So when the United States went into Iraq during the time of George Bush and we took out Saddam Hussein, we opened the door for the reunification of ancient Persia under Iran and Iraq unifying. And even though right now we see that Donald Trump has pretty much crippled a lot of the Iranian regime, Bible prophecy tells us that Trump is not going to finish the job and Iran is going to remain intact. Even if he's put a Band-Aid on it, Iran is going to still lead all of these nations into an attack on the modern nation of Israel, right? So again, you got, they helped the Taliban oust the United States from Afghanistan. This is all Iran. Intimidated many of the moderate Arab nations into compliance and heavily infiltrated Yemen, Bahrain, and several African nations. So when we say king of the South, we're talking about a king that's south of modern Europe, which is the northern king, and that's going to unify countries into some form of a alliance to make war with the modern nation of Israel. We know that Iran, since April the 1st, 1979, and the revolution has changed its policy all the way up to modern times, quoting death to Israel and America. And this is why I was saying earlier, you can't really separate the modern nation of America or the United Kingdom from the little nation of Israel, which biblical scholars call Judah today. So that's Judah. So you got Judah and then you got Israel. Israel being America, Britain, and all of the nations that is in the Western world, Canada, Australia. This is where the scattered Israelites are. I know certain Hebrew Israelite camps deal with the 12 tribes chart and things of that nature. I'm dealing with it from the whole nation. We're not breaking it down, oh, the Cubans is this, the Haitians is this. We're saying North America and the United Kingdom is the nations of Israel. And you can see that plainly because as the Iranians chant death to Israel, they also chant death to America because America and Israel is joined at the hip geopolitically. You can't separate them. Okay? So in Israel, the real power behind the extreme Palestinian faction is Iran. There goes the Palestinian conflict. So you got all these conflicts over the Holy Land in Israel, and you got all of these radical Islamic nations being backed by Iran, which is the king of the South. Iran is pursuing a parallel policy of surrounding Israel with implacable enemies, the Islamic Affairs Analysis of Gloucester, England wrote in August of 1994. So now I'm going to get into a real quick history of what's been going on more recently under the former President Barack Obama. In 2016, Barack Obama and Iran signed on to the 2016 nuclear deal, known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or the JCPOA. During Obama's presidency, the U.S. spearheaded an international effort to negotiate a nuclear deal with Iran. When the deal was implemented on January 16, 2016, the U.S. and the European Union, there goes the king of the North, lifted sanctions on Iran, released over $100 billion in frozen assets, and welcomed Iran into a range of economic deals. And in return, they received nothing. Iran changed nothing in its policy of aggression, subversion, and sponsoring terrorism. It didn't even say it would reform in any of these areas. Without giving in on anything, Iran was given everything it needed to accelerate its race towards acquiring a nuclear bomb. During the nuclear talks, Iran leaders continued to call Israel the little Satan and America the great Satan. Okay, guys, so you could see this history in Iran starting in 1979, building all the way up till 2016 under Barack Obama, where they set up the JCPOA, and how Iran never changed its political stance on wanting to destroy the little nation of Israel today and America. Now, listen to this. The day the JCPOA was implemented, Iran's supreme leader said the country's aggressively anti-American and anti-Israeli policy would continue unchanged. 2 days later, Iran ordered its military to accelerate its illegal intercontinental ballistic missile program. Okay, so now let me get into this because I spoke about the Muslim Brotherhood. And now we're going to speak a little bit about what declassification of documentation under the presidency of Donald Trump just last year unveiled. It unveiled that Barack Obama was utilizing the JCPOA agreement to actually funnel money to Iran. And under the Uranium One deal that was declassified, they were sending Iran nuclear materials in order for it to build the bomb and attack Israel. And this is why Trump shocked everybody when he went against Iran currently, claiming that they were about to get the bomb. What people don't realize that's happening right now is that Donald Trump is getting ready to get the nuclear isotopes from the Iranians that's going to prove that Barack Obama and the Muslim Brotherhood was funding the terrorism in all throughout the Middle East and propping up Iran. And if you think that sounds crazy, what you got to see optically that's going on in current events, once Trump attacked Iran, you notice how the Democratic Party is almost like a mouthpiece in vocalizing their support for Iran, just like with Palestine. So what Trump is trying to do is show everybody who the real enemy is and who's really been funding the terrorism. The Democratic Party. Just look at all of the talking heads. Look at how they're going at Trump for an illegal war with Iran. We know that the Iranians have been killing American soldiers and bringing all kind of havoc to America in Iraq, mainly after the Gulf War, for decades now. All the way since 1979, they've been chanting death to America and death to Israel. But for some strange reason, the minute that Trump went in the top, and all of the talking heads, like just like they said, nations that are against the modern nation of Israel. Okay, so in 2020, Donald Trump negotiated peace treaties between Israel and 4 Arab states: the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco. And I want to speak quickly about that because what you're witnessing in the Middle East is Trump trying to go inside of certain countries, overthrow the radicals, and try to make deals with the moderate people that want to have peace. Because who Barack Obama and the Democrats were funding were the radical Islamic extremists within those nations that want to take Israel to war. They were even giving them the uranium to do it. And that's why they're so afraid right now of Trump attacking Iran, because once he gets a hold of the uranium isotopes, just to make this make sense, they're going to be able to trace it back to the U.S. And when they trace it back to the United States, it's going to bring forth a treason charge against all of the Democrats and everything they've been doing. We've been over here speaking out against the Democratic Party since our brother Carl voted for Donald J. Trump, understanding that the Democrats are responsible for the COVID. They're responsible for overthrowing the elections. They're responsible for funding and financing terrorist regimes in the Middle East and over to overthrow Israel and attack America. And they've been bringing the terrorists across our southern border mainly and setting them up all over this country. That's the reason why Trump had to activate ICE, because they were getting ready to try to overthrow the United States government, give Iran the nuclear bomb, and hold the entire world hostage, i.e. bring us into World War III, which is still inevitable to happen, but we just got to understand what we're looking at and dealing with. So Biden now, when Joe Biden came in, he claimed that the money, hold on, let me back up. On September 11th, 2023, the Biden administration did something very provocative. On the 22nd anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attack, the government announced an unfreezing of an incredible $6 billion for Iran in a hostage deal. So under Joe Biden recently, they gave the Iranians $6 billion. Biden claimed the money would be spent for humanitarian purposes. But his Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, admitted otherwise. The Iranians have always found a way to use money, whether there are sanctions or not, for military purposes, a euphemism for terrorist purposes. Okay? So basically, Joe Biden unfreezed some money, and that same money was used to fund the people who attacked Israel on October 7th. Everybody knows that the Palestinians crossed over the Israeli border on October 7th of 2023 and attacked, maimed, killed, raped people. And that's what kicked off the modern thing that we see going on in the Middle East. But where did they get the funding from? Obviously, Joe Biden and them releasing the funds. Now, I want to read a quick verse from 2 Kings. For the Lord saw the affliction of Israel. This is 2 Kings chapter 14, verse 26 and 27. For the Lord saw the affliction of Israel, that it was very bitter, for there was not any shut up, nor any left, nor any helper for Israel. And the Lord said not that he would blot out the name of Israel from under heaven, but he saved them by the hand of Jeroboam, the son of Joash. Now I'm reading that. That's an ancient account of Israel, but that's to be applied to the modern nation of Israel as well. Because what Iran and the radical Islamic extremist nations are trying to do is they're trying to destroy or erase the name of Israel from the earth as we know it, just like they did anciently. This has always been the devil's move. Go ahead.
Quick question.
Mm-hmm.
The Muslim Brotherhood and American people today, under the term Hebrew Israelite, are they united?
Definitely they're united. If you're not for God, you against God. So I would say yes. That's part of the faction, the Muslim Brotherhood. In the Muslim Brotherhood, even the Hebrew Israelites, they might come together because this is we know, let me say it like this. We know that the Bible in Revelation says that there's a group of people out here claiming to be Jews when they really aren't. Now, we spoke about that being what we would call the Edomites today. And we're talking about the people, not the land, because when I'm talking about Edom in some of these accounts, we're talking about the land of Edom. But the people of Edom is who we've spoken of are the ones claiming to be Jews and trying to take ethnic Israel and place them as the tail. The Hebrew Israelites, you reminded me of something. Right now, the Hebrew Israelites is in Dimona. When Donald Trump attacked Iran, they attacked Dimona because Dimona is where Israel's nuclear power plants is at. And I haven't seen any of the Hebrew Israelites talking about this because basically the Hebrew Israelites have been given the subprime real estate in Israel. They gave them Dimona, which is right there where the actual nuclear power plants is at. And they got bombed. They got bombed something awful when Trump attacked Iran. They just aimed their missiles at all the people that was helping the U.S., the moderate Arab nations, and they aimed missiles at Israel, and some of them connected with Dimona. So people lost their lives in this already in the Hebrew Israelite faction, just to kind of make that sidebar. That this war is heating up. Okay, so let me go. I read 2 Kings. Obama, right? He partnered with the Islamic Republic of Iran and brazenly lied to the American people because he wanted to blot out both the Jewish state and America. These people have a hatred for this country and little Israel. They are working together in order to overthrow the United States. Now, a lot of people will argue that's because of colonialism and also what we spoke about with the Edomites or the fake, those claiming to be Jews. But this ain't going to go good for nobody because their ultimate goal is to double cross and get rid of Israel. Even from the standpoint of the Bible being Israel doctrine or Israel teaching, we know they want to get rid of the Bible. You see that in the conscious community, a lot of the scholars kicking against the Bible, saying, oh, we need to leave religion alone. The Bible, like I just was saying earlier, a third of it is dedicated to history. So how could you get rid of history? You got to look at it and not be so emotionally charged over religion. You got to look at the value, which over here teaches the Bible is the best tool for our liberation. Why? What I'm telling you, it deals with a third of it is history, so it's a great history lesson. But we're dealing with eschatology, which is another third of the Bible deals with prophecy. It breaks down what every single nation on this planet is about to do, has done, and how can you cast that to the ground when you start aligning these things. And that's why we're having shows like this. So he also expressed hatred for Britain. So Barack Obama expressed hatred for Britain. He has hatred for the Jewish state of Israel and America. Like the ancient Seleucid king Antiochus Epiphanes, which is referenced in Daniel 8:24. So right now, this commentary is likening Barack Obama as a type of ancient Antiochus Epiphanes that try to overthrow and destroy or blot out the very name of Israel from earth in real time. When you look at the history of Iran, the revolution, and what the United States did under Barack's tutelage, to bring the Muslim Brotherhood into more play and activate the Arab Spring all throughout the Middle East to line up for this alliance. So early in his administration, Obama directly played a hand in allowing the 2011 Arab Spring to take over Egypt. Then the Obama administration, through its partnership with Twitter and Facebook, actively supported the Arab Spring, particularly in Egypt. This support led to the downfall of the president at that time, clearing the path for the Muslim Brotherhood to seize power. So you got to understand what Barack was doing under them 8 years he was in office. He was restructuring the whole Middle East and setting it up for Iran to take the helm and for Egypt and all of these nations to unify behind them. So during the Crusades, Jerusalem was always the main prize, because their different wars were principally over possessions of Judea, which is the land called Israel today. So everything we're seeing in the world right now revolves around the land of Israel or modern Judea. Why? I'm going to explain why. This city is the supreme religious importance to the Jews, Christians, and the Muslims. The so-called Christian Crusades were really Catholic Crusades. The Roman Catholics generally clashed with the Muslim armies. So just so I don't sound crazy, what we're seeing form today with this whole Iranian attack under Donald Trump is an attempt to try to slow down or stop the building up of a modern crusade. But the Bible tells us that crusade is going to happen, or a clash between the king of the south and the king of the north. I want to stay on topic. We read Daniel 11:40 through 43. The king of the north is the Roman Empire. The king of the south is Iran, with all of the radical Muslim countries. And what we're witnessing build up is a holy war is coming between those two factions. The Bible tells us that America is going to pull out of Iran at some point. We already know that Trump is trying to make a peace deal and bring the troops back home. He doesn't want to put troops on the ground in Iran. And people are arguing that you're not going to get rid of the Iranians unless you put troops on the ground. But Trump can't afford to put troops on the ground because there's not enough consensus back here at home to support that. He's only going to put a Band-Aid on the open wound. The Iranians are going to remain, and ultimately they're going to go to war with Europe. And the way that we know that's true, because the Strait of Hormuz, or that waterway that they got locked up right now, that oil mainly goes to Europe. The U.S. doesn't really use any of that oil over there. That whole Strait of Hormuz situation, the U.S. doesn't use the oil. That oil goes to Europe. So we know that at some point, Europe is going to have to step up to the plate and deal with Iran. Just like this Bible is prophesying about that king of the north and the king of the south. And we know that to also be true, because at the end of the day, that would be a modern crusade. It's going to be all over the Holy Land or Judea, just like it was in the time of the Crusades. So I'm not trying to be too long-winded. I'm going to try to speed up and wrap this up. I'm going to read you guys a verse out of Hosea 5:5. And the pride of Israel doth testify to his face. Therefore shall Israel and Ephraim fall in their iniquity. Judah also shall fall with them. Now, this is a pivotal Bible verse, because it's speaking of a time when Israel or Ephraim is going to fall along with Judah. Ephraim, as taught by Ambassador College under Herbert Armstrong, and now kept by his student Gerald Flurry, who wrote the book, The King of the South. Ephraim is Britain. Manasseh is America, and Judah is Israel. And the Bible prophesies that when modern Israel or Judah falls at the same time, America and Britain is going to fall. And you could see that because we're all joined at the hip. Who's the number one avid supporter of Israel? The United States. Who's in a joint effort to take down Iran right now? The United States and Israel. Who's against the United States and Israel? The whole world. The whole world is upset that Donald Trump went into Iran right now, even the Europeans. When in fact, he's actually trying to secure the Strait of Hormuz for them, because they're the ones that need the oil. You got to know politics to understand where we're coming from over here. And you got to understand what's going on the ground in our own country as it relates to the Muslim Brotherhood. Because what they did was, in Texas, let me just give you a sidebar. Texas just had to change its law because they've been bringing various Muslim refugees here, setting up shop with their mosque, and then controlling the votes in various locations. You see New York? New York has Mamdani. You see Minnesota? Minnesota has Ilhan Omar. They're all part of the Muslim Brotherhood. These are Muslim countries that have taken that oil for petrodollar since the 1970s, build up their ability to come here and influence elections. They're trying to overthrow the Judeo-Christian values of the Constitution of the United States of America and replace it with Islamic Sharia law. And they've been doing it over a long period of time, since the Iranian Revolution on April the 1st, 1979. And I'm going to sidebar this. Who was at the hospital the night that Bambaataa allegedly got stabbed? The Nation of Islam. Because Africa Bambaataa is Islam. Albeit he might be a Sunni or a more moderate Islamic supporter, but at the end of the day, the head of Islam is Iran, which is a radical Shiite Muslim. They believe in killing the infidels and destroying the nation of Israel and all of that. So now let me just get, because I got a lot of notes, but I want to skip down to this alliance. All right, of the Psalms 83, because I've already showed that the king of the south is Iran, and Iran is going to ally up with various nations. They already have under the Arab Spring, which I explained was set off by Barack Obama, Yemen, Palestine. I'm going to list off nations that joined this combined of the king of the south: Libya, Ethiopia, Egypt. These are countries that are unified behind the push, because the Bible in Daniel 11 says the king of the south is going to push at the king of the north, which we have already established is wrong. So this southern king is going to unify a bunch of countries and make a push and keep pushing. Who has been pushing and pushing and pushing for war? Iran since 1979, saying they want death to Israel and death to America. And they've been pushing and pushing and pushing in the Middle East. They're going to push one too many times and push against Germany, and Germany's going to handle them like never before. The United States is not going to do that. They're crippling Iran in a lot of ways, but the U.S. in Israel right now is currently not going to complete that mission. In the sense of Iran is going to remain, and Iran is going to go to war with Germany and the European common market. Now, this Psalms 83 alliance is important because this is something that all the Bible commentary and scholars say has not been fulfilled. So this is distinctly for our full preterist audience. And the reason why I talk about preterism so much is our brother Carl, early in, when I met brother Carl, he had debated a minister by the name of William Bell, who is a full preterist. So I believe that a lot of people who watch Israel Doctrine, they remember that day in those eras of Carl's debates. And this is something for them, the people who believe all things were fulfilled in AD 70. Psalms 83 makes a strong counter argument that all things was not fulfilled, because it talks about an alliance of nations that are going to ally up with the king of the north after it goes to war with the king of the south, as prophesied in Daniel 11. And all the Bible commentators that follow this prophecy out of Psalms 83, they say that there's no historical point in time where these nations came together. So this is for the future. So the prophecy, who will join this alliance, right? But let me back up real quick about the Iranian alliance and just run this. The prophecy about Libya and Ethiopia unlocks Iran's military strategy. The king of the south is going to push at the king of the north, probably brandishing his power over the Mediterranean Red Sea route. We see that going on right now Right now, not just the Strait of Hormuz, but the Red Sea, where the Houthis is at in Yemen, is another major choke point that is under contention with the U.S. and Iran in their ability to control the flow of commerce using those vital sea gates. Which, let me say this about sea gates. The way that you know that the British Empire became a great empire, the greatest to date to ever exist on planet Earth, the British, is because they control all the seaports of the world. He who controls the gates, the Bible calls it gates. When you read in the Bible about gates, it's talking about vital choke points and waterways. The British Empire controlled most of them all over the globe. That's what made the British Empire so great. And then America, we know, came out of Britain. That's where we get the Ephraim and Manasseh connection when we're talking about Bible prophecy and ancient Israel and who's the modern, where the modern Israelites, which nations compromise where Israel is today. Ephraim and Manasseh being America and Britain, because Britain became a great nation, just like the Bible said Ephraim would be, but little Manasseh would become even a more smaller but bigger superpower, which America is to Britain. So Britain controlled all the world's waterways. Gibraltar, you could just go get the history, the maps. All the strategic waterways was controlled by the United Kingdom. Then America split. Revolution, we have North America, Americas, and America became the lone superpower of the world, even above the United Kingdom now, to this day. And if you read the prophecy about what the Bible said about Ephraim and Manasseh, these are the only two nations that could possibly fit that bill. And like I said, we're joined at the hip with modern Israel strategically. So you could see all of Israel is unified with America, Britain, and the modern nation of Judah, or Israel as we call it today, right? So the king of the south is going to push the king of the north, probably brandishing his power over the Mediterranean Red Sea. Libya, Ethiopia, and the other nations along the Red Sea play a key role in Iran's trade route strategy. This is back to the gates and trade and all of that. That push will be a dramatic act of war that will provoke a violent response from Germany. The Bible indicates that Libya and Ethiopia must be subdued by the king of the north because they're in the radical Islamic camp. Those two nations are at his steps. So when we just read that prophecy about when the king of the north whirlwinds against the king of the south, it's going to subdue Libya, Ethiopia, and all of these nations. And this emphasis is in Daniel 42 and 43. It's on Egypt, Libya, and Ethiopia. So see how the Bible is dealing in prophecy, but it's actually naming some of these nations directly as they are today. This is how you can't kind of get out of Bible eschatology for those people who try to like cast against the Bible or castigate it as being fake and all of this stuff. But when you're looking at history, current events, you can't escape it because these nations are lining up right in front of all of our eyes. Yemen is one of the most strategically important countries in the world. The Houthis' takeover in Yemen proves that Iran is implementing a bold strategy to control the vital sea lane from the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean Sea. So this is about sea gates, people, and control of commerce with North Africa and all of the African countries allied under the Islamic banner of extremism coming out of Iran, or what we know today to be modern Persia, because that's ancient Persia. When you take Iran and Iraq and combine them, there goes your Persian Empire, historically. All right, now I'm going to just close out. Now let us get to Psalms 83, because Psalms 83 is really the premise of this whole thing, to show an alliance that's going to form after this war breaks out with Iran and Germany, and they whirlwind, like the Bible says in Daniel 11:40 through 43. Psalms 83, 1 and 3 starts with, "Keep not thou silence, O God, hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make atonement, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones." Let us read what the alliance that comes against God's hidden people consists of. Now, the reason why this verse is important is because we know that the Israelites are scattered amongst many nations and they're almost hidden. Most people don't even know they're Israel. This is why we got Brother Carl doing what he does against the Hebrew Israelites, saying that that's not in the Bible. Y'all are really the people of God. You need to come and be Israel and stop playing around with this Hebrew Israelite stuff, because you are the hidden ones that most of these prophecies is talking about. You're going to go into the great tribulation that's about to happen if you don't listen to what Brother Carl and other brothers is trying to tell y'all about this stuff. Those who don't believe in the New Testament and that Jesus is going to return, and even to the full preterists that believe all things has been fulfilled in AD 70. You guys better get this right. Okay, let us read what the alliance that comes against God's hidden people consists of. The tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites of Moab and the Hagarenes, Jabal and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre, Assur, also is joined with them. They have opened the children of Lot, Salah. So this is talking about, in Psalms 83, an alliance of countries that's going to formulate a plot to try to overthrow Israel. But you got to understand in context that this takes place after the king of the south gets whirlwinded by the king of the north. Certain nations are going to ally up with Germany and double-cross Israel, because Israel is going to look to Germany to protect it in the very near future. Right now, it's dependent on us, the United States. The United States is going to pull out of the Middle East. And like I'm telling y'all, ultimately, Germany and the European Economic Community is going to be the ones that deal with Iran and all of the nations behind it. But when it does that, it's going to be in a position to double-cross Israel and stick the Antichrist inside of the seat. And these nations that are being referenced in Psalms 83 is who forms an alliance with the king of the north. Okay? So you must know who the modern descendants of these people are to understand just how timely and relevant this prophecy is. Meaning the Psalms 83 prophecy is very important, because it's talking about a double cross that's going to get everybody in the earth put into what the Bible speaks of as the Great Tribulation for 3.5 years. But it involves certain nations allying up with the king of the north. Now, what I spoke of earlier about Herbert Armstrong's Ambassador College in Pasadena, California, that taught about who these modern nations are in his college, so you can understand these prophecies. The Ishmaelites are Saudi Arabia. Moab and Ammon refer to Jordan, and the Hagarenes anciently dwelled in the land known as Syria today. The Philistines represent the modern Palestinian Arabs. Okay? So what you're going to see is an alliance between Saudi Arabia, which is the moderate Arab countries, and let me just give a little sub-bar on that. You have extreme Arab countries or Islamic countries that fall under Shiite Muslims. That's Iran, that's Egypt, that's Libya, that's Ethiopia, that's these countries. They're going to unify and go to war with Germany. Then you have moderate Arab nations that are Sunni. So you got extreme Islam and you got more moderate Islam. The moderate Islamic nations are Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and the ones that I'm telling you. They're at some point going to ally up with the king of the north, and the Psalms 83 prophecy shows you who those nations are. And you can see it politically, because you can see who the United States is allied up with in the Middle East to even go at Iran right now. They had to sit down with Saudi Arabia and all of the moderate Arab countries and get their support. And that's the reason why when the United States just launched this attack in the Middle East on Iran, who did Iran turn all the missiles on? All the moderate Arab nations that were helping or letting the U.S. use its bases to attack Iran. They launched missiles at Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and all of these countries that are more moderate. The Bible tells us that those moderate Arab nations, after the radical ones go to war with Germany and get smashed, they're going to ally up with Germany and they're going to double cross Israel. And they're going to sit and man inside of the temple in Israel, and the world is going to go through the most pain and suffering it has ever seen since the beginning of man's inception. Anciently, it happened in AD 70 as a type of what is about to be fulfilled now at the end, right before Jesus Christ returns to this planet. Because the Bible says if Jesus doesn't return, no flesh will be saved alive. There's Bible verses in the book of Matthew that breaks that down. That this war is going to get so crazy based on what I believe to be nuclear and all kind of unconventional warfare weapons that have been created. That if Christ doesn't intervene in return, the Bible says no flesh will be saved alive. These weapons can kill everybody on the whole planet. That's why it was so imperative that Trump stop Iran from building the nuclear bomb right now, that the Muslim Brotherhood was helping them build. Because once they got the nuclear bomb with the intercontinental ballistic missile, they were going to hold a whole world hostage and plunge us into World War III right now. Trump stopped something pivotal by moving on Iran right now, but I'm here to tell you in Bible prophecy, it says that Iran is going to remain intact because of the sins of the nations of Israel, which include America and Britain. If these nations do not repent and atone from breaking God's commandments, these things are going to come to pass. Now, Trump is doing a great job, and he's trying to save America for a short season, but only so that the people here can repent. Repent from all of the adultery, the fornication, and all of the wicked things and the breaking of God's commandments that as a whole we do. If we don't do that, these things is coming.
LGBTQIA plus, high in the bambada, if you could speak on it.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the other thing Barack Obama did. He brought the LGBTQIA plus and made it legal and all of that. And then they used that as a proxy to help overthrow the United States government and get here hit. You got to see the politics. These radical Islamic nations don't agree with homosexuality. So why would they make it legal in the West in these countries? So they can get here hit by those Islamic extremist nations. Wake up, people. Wake up. Meaning, okay, so if you have an idea that you want to overthrow Israel and get rid of America, just like the Iranians was chanting, death to America, death to Israel. Well, when you get its people to agree to LGBTQ, you just set up the thing that the Islamic extremism, they'll kill you for that. Or Sodom and Gomorrah, fire rain down on the cities. You don't see the setup pens. You don't see the Muslim Brotherhood systematically working to bring homosexuality in to our culture through the subculture, bring it through the gate, and then get you hit. When you understand the geopolitical ramifications that this has on global contracts, because certain countries is like, we're not doing no business with you with that homosexuality. Look at Uganda as an example in Africa. They don't play that stuff. Even if in their society they do homosexuality, it's not legal and they'll chop your head off if they catch you doing it. So this is not a game. But again, we're in Psalms 83 and we're talking about this alliance that's going to be formed after the king of the south is smashed by the king of the north. So one people listed in that prophecy in Psalms outside the region is Assur. At one time, this was the capital of Assyria, which is the term that biblical prophecy uses for modern day Germany. So if you want to understand the Assyrians and where they landed in the modern world, that's Germany. And if you read the Bible says that Assyria is God's hand. The Israelites is his inheritance, and the Egyptians is his people. So God uses the Assyrians to whip Israel. Whenever Israel gets out of line and don't follow God's command, you know what he does? He lets a nation rise up and whip them. Who's been whipping the Israelites forever and ever and ever in the modern world? Germany, the Catholic Church. That's modern Assyria. So the Assyrians are going to unify with these nations in the Psalms 83 alliance, and then they're going to double cross the modern nation of Israel, set up their king in the temple, and then they're going to wade through seas of blood, killing everybody that don't agree with the Catholic Church like they did in antiquity or during the time of the ancient crusades. Ain't nothing changed till Jesus comes. If Jesus don't return, this stuff is going to keep going on. It's been going on. That's why we don't believe in full preterism over here. We're partial preterists. I showed why. I showed earlier how things were fulfilled in AD 70 as it related to the Persians at that time when Daniel was living. But Daniel's prophecies go way out into the future, past AD 70. Okay, so you can see a unique alliance is prophesied in Psalms 83, a collection of Middle Eastern Islamic peoples along with the Turks all the way from Europe to the Germans. So you're going to see a German alliance with moderate Arab nations form after the radical ones are taken out, like Iran, Egypt, Libya, Yemen, all of these countries that are radicalized under the Shiites and split away from the more moderate Arab nations like Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and all of that. Okay, now listen to this. What is going to unite these people, these moderate Arabs, with the Assyrians or the modern king of the north? Their evil purpose was revealed in Psalms 83, 4-5. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. So these nations hate Israel. They hate the Israel of God, which Brother Carl calls it the true Israel of God, the mixed multitude, the church. Because Israel is a name given to God's people from heaven. And in the earth, the devil hates that, and everybody that's aligned with Satan hates Israel. They want to erase it off the map. They want to get rid of Israel's doctrine, the Bible. They want to get rid of these teachings. They don't want people to know this stuff, because when you know this stuff, you know God is real. Because the prophecies have been fulfilled, they're being fulfilled, and they're going to be fulfilled. And we're watching it dictate into the worst suffering man has ever seen when you understand the geopolitics and the weaponry that these countries are amassing in private and in public display. So, okay, these verses in Psalms are talking about the modern descendants of the 12 tribes of biblical Israel. Do you know who they are? The modern Jewish state of Israel is only one of those tribes, Judah. In biblical prophecy, Israel refers especially to the birthright nations that descended from Joseph, Ephraim, and Manasseh. So that's why it's important to understand the separation of Israel as it relates to the north and south, Judah and Israel, and understanding what the Bible says about Ephraim and Manasseh as it relates to Judah. Because when you read prophecies about the fall of Judah, it says that Ephraim and Manasseh and Judah fall all together at the same time. That would be America, Britain, and the modern nation of Israel is getting ready to fall all together. And I'm going to explain why. Britain and the Jewish nations are all aligned. When Psalms 83 says that this alliance is against our people, it means Germany and its Middle Eastern allies are targeting the Americans, the British, and the Jews in the Middle East. So Germany has always tried to hijack for the Catholic Church Jerusalem and then set up its men and go out and kill who? I'm going to say spiritual Israel as well as ethnic Israel. That's a whole nother discussion, but they've been slaughtering God's people since the first century when they killed the God's apostles. They ain't stopped since. They setting it up again to have a grand sacrifice this time, because this is, like I was telling y'all earlier, the 7th resurrection is forming in Germany right now. Hitler was the 6th emperor of Rome. Based on historical, secular history, whether you believe the Bible or not. You can walk the door from Justinian all the way to Hitler. You can see that there's a real Roman emperor's crown that they put on their heads, all these emperors, and you can see the Bible is sound, because it said it would be 10 resurrections of that empire. The first 3 were after AD 70, but it was put in one under the 3 barbarian Roman kings. Then after that, the Holy Roman Empire was born, and 7 kings, with the 6th one being Hitler, has wore that crown. It's called the Crown of Rome. Go Google search it. Read about Hitler going and annexing the country Austria in World War II and taking that crown and putting it right on top of his head and being crowned the Emperor of Rome. And that was the 6th time it happened. The one that we see forming now, because again, remember, we're dealing in eschatology, stuff that hasn't happened yet. But you could see it forming because the minute that Trump came into power, he said, we're getting ready to come out of NATO. And NATO is the alliance that was formed since World War II for America to have a check and balance on Europe and protect Germany so that it couldn't form its own war machine again. You know what the headlines was reading last December? Ever since? Germany's new war machine. Type it in your Google search. We did the show that's in the side chat last year around this time, around spring, where we spoke about Panama and Greenland and a lot of this topic. And I said this before it happened, that what we're going to see is a split in NATO, and then we're going to see Germany talking about building its own military again, which didn't happen yet when we did that show, people. It didn't happen until December of last year, where Germany is now building a war machine.
Great show, brother. You don't want to burn them out, do you?
No, that's it.
Well, I appreciate the material.
Yeah, people, do your own research. Go read Psalms. Go read Daniel. Look at what we're saying in current events. Form your own conclusion. I would say pray that the Holy Spirit give you vision, that you see what we're talking about. And that's about it. But I thought it was time to do the show. So we dealt with the North, we dealt with the South. The next show we do, when we decide to do it, I'm going to deal with the East. And I'll say this on the close. The Bible breaks everything down in North, South, East, and West. So when you understand what countries is North, you understand what countries is South, you understand what countries is East, and we know we're the West. And that's how you break it down. But the next show we're going to do is about tidings from the East and how Asia plays a role into all of this. And that's it, man.
All right. Once again, thanks for the content. Needed that during this geopolitical season that we. Thanks.
I'm going to say peace, man. Thank you.
Peace.